Welcome to the Coupler.io Academy, where industry experts share tips and tricks on working with data. This video explains how to use the query function in Google Sheets. Google Sheets query formula is one of the most powerful functions in Sheets. It's like SQL for your spreadsheets with many clauses you may be familiar with, such as select, where, group by, order by, and more. With the query function, you can pull specific data from one or multiple sheets, perform operations on each row, extract data, filter, sort, build pivot tables on the go, and much more. Let's look at the syntax of query function and see it in action. I'll type query and open parentheses, which pulls up the help text about Google Sheets query. Query formula in Google Sheets has three parameters. Data represents the data range you are querying, the query itself wrapped in quotation marks, and optional headers. If you omit it or type in -1, Sheets will guess where the header is based on the content of the chosen data range. 0 tells Sheets that there's no header, while 1, for example, indicates that the top row contains headers. In this query function tutorial, I'll be working with a sales dataset from Salesforce that I already have in another tab. I fetched it using Coupler.io, a popular data automation and analytics platform that collects and transforms data from the business apps you use on your chosen schedule. By the way, if you'd like to play along, the link to this dummy dataset will pop up on your screen right now, and you'll also find it in the video description. Okay, let's jump back to the previous tab and write a simple query function. First, add the data you want to query. The sheet name is sales_data, then an exclamation mark. For starters, I'll fetch the entire dataset from columns A through H. Let's type A1:H. Next, I type the query itself, starting with the quotation sign. Like in SQL, you select the list of columns with the select clause. To fetch all columns from the chosen data range, type in an asterisk, close the quotation, and press enter. This fetched the entire dataset just as I wanted. If anything changes in the chosen data range, the changes will be immediately reflected here also. But copying an entire sheet isn't particularly useful, is it? Let's grab just a few columns. For example, B, C, and F. There are two methods to select columns when using query. The first I've used so far involves letters depicting particular columns. Another method revolves around column numbers. In this case, I would type col2, col3, and col6, which would fetch exactly the same data. While the first method may be more intuitive for many, you'll need to use the second method for more advanced queries, or when combining query with other Google Sheets functions. To filter data in Google Sheets query, use the where clause. Let's reset the query to see the entire data set again. And now let's type in where to fetch only the one deals. It will be column G, equals, and closed one in single quotes. Okay, this filtered out all opportunities that weren't one. You can use the query function with multiple criteria too. For that, you can use operators and as well as or. For example, let's fetch only the one deals with a value of more than $50,000. When working with text data, you can take advantage of other operators, such as starts with, contains, like, and more. Let's continue nurturing the one deals, but find only the rows where the account name starts with the word data. Note that the conditions are case sensitive. Yes, that's exactly what I needed. But what if you want to fetch only the rows that don't start with data? Just place a not operator before that condition, and you'll get precisely what you need. Another very useful clause you can use with query is order by. It does precisely that. Orders rows by the value in the chosen column. For example, let's sort by the column E. This will sort all deals by their values. By default, the sorting is in ascending order. If you prefer a descending order, type in desk in the formula. Now, the deals start from the most profitable one. So far, we were only selecting, filtering, and sorting data, but the real power of query comes from performing operations on your data. For that, you'll want to know how to use the group by clause. Group by is used to group data by values in a chosen column and return aggregated results for such groups. In this example, I want to group the dataset by deal owners and return the total value of deals for each owner. To do that, let's select column D and the sum of column E, which contains the value of each deal. Next, I'll group it by D. Please note that any column you add to the select statement must either be aggregated or used for grouping. Otherwise, you'll get an error. And here are my sales agents with the total of their deal value. By default, the data is sorted by the first column alphabetically, which doesn't tell us much about, for example, who is our best salesperson. I can fix it by adding an order by statement for the sum of column E. A descending order would probably make more sense, so let's tweak it further. You can group data by more than one column. For example, in the dataset, column C represents the countries of my accounts. Let's add them to the query. For starters, remove the order by clause. It wouldn't cause an error, but the grouping will be clearer without it. Now let's add the column C to select and also to group by. Order matters here. If you prefer to group first by countries and then by owners, swap the order. Okay, so we've got the data grouped by owners, then countries, and the sum of deals for each group. Query in Google Sheets supports sum, as well as many other aggregation formulas. For example, you can see the average deal value, or maximum deal value if you prefer, and more. Let's reset and continue with another example. In the meantime, I created a fresh dataset with IDs starting from 101 and going until 200. I want to combine multiple sheets with Google Sheets query function, the original one and the new one. To do that, I'll need to wrap the data range in curly brackets, telling Google Sheet that it's an array it's dealing with. Also, I must refer to columns with their numbers, for example, col1 or col2, rather than letters. Let's leave the original date range, type in a semicolon, and then add the second sheet. When dealing with arrays, the size of each sheet involved will need to be identical, meaning that you can't, for example, select A2 to F as a range. Okay, let's see what happens. At first, everything looks in order, but as I scroll down, the second dataset seems missing. Is it? Scrolling further down, I find the data in rows 1001 and onwards. Why? Query function indeed combined both sheets. However, looking at the original dataset, I realized that on top of 100 rows with data, there were also 900 empty rows that were imported and returned before the second dataset was displayed. To fix that, you can add a where clause to filter out all rows where column 1 is not empty. You can see now the second dataset starting right after the first one. This operation also removed the second header row from the results of my query. Instead of col1, you can reference col2 or any other, as long as the column has data in every relevant row. Of course, I don't need to select all columns, but can opt only for some. For examples, columns 2, 4, and 6. By combining query with the IMPORTRANGE function, you can also fetch and process data from another spreadsheet. Let's see how this works. Inside the query function, let's nest the IMPORTRANGE function. From another spreadsheet, I want to fetch even more sales deals. In particular, I want to get the sum of products sold for each account. So columns H and B. IMPORTRANGE has two parameters: the URL of the spreadsheet and the data range to import. Let's copy the URL and paste it into the formula. As a range, let's fetch the entire dataset again. Keep in mind that both parameters must be wrapped in quotes. Finally, I write a query to run on this data range. Let's select the second column, which is account names. Next, I get the sum of column 8, which is the product count for each deal and group by the latter. If it's the first time you're connecting this spreadsheet, you'll need to provide access. Give it a moment to load, and here you go, the list of accounts with the product count for each. Let's now see how to create a pivot table from a single query. Pivot tables are great for aggregating data for one or more dimensions. A simple example would be to, for example, sum up the values of deals and pivot them by owners. The result is a transposed table that shows the sum of deals for each owner separately. This itself doesn't provide any more information than a simple sum with group by would. But the cool thing is that you can combine all these clauses into a single Google Sheets query formula. So let's add the group by statement to the formula and group by column C, which in the original dataset were countries. Let's also add these countries to the select statement. So I will have countries, the sum of deal values, all grouped by countries and pivoted by owners. And now it's a proper pivot table. Countries to the left, owners on top, and the sum of deal values for each pair of dimensions. Clauses like limit and offset let you display just some of the data. They're useful when you're querying a huge dataset and just want to return, say, the top 10 results, or if you know the first X rows are irrelevant and you'd rather skip them. Let's type limit 10 and see how it works right away. Only the first 10 rows plus the headers row were returned. Limit is often combined with order by, but it can also go as a standalone statement, as was the case here. Offset, on the other hand, cuts the X rows from the top of the list, skipping the headers row. Here, for example, it cut the first 5 rows, so the list now starts from ID number 6. You can also combine both clauses. Here, for example, I just want to get the deals numbered from 6 through 15. There are 2 more clauses for the query function that I haven't discussed yet, label and format. Let's grab from here ID, deal value, and the expected close date. So columns A, E, and F. Okay, so I have the list of deals with the value for each and the expected close date. The cool thing about query is that you can combine it with a range of scalar functions, most of which revolve around date and time. Here, for example, I can take the column with dates, which was F in the original dataset, and extract it from year, month, day, and the day of the week. Just like this, the data I now extracted will be really useful for any kind of dashboards, charts, or pivot tables where I want to pull up data for a particular period, for example, for each month separately. You can also perform operations on the columns and return the results with the query function. In the original dataset, I have a value for each deal and the count of products sold in each. What I can do is calculate the average product price for each deal. So let's divide E by H to get the average. The results are fine, but the column's name is perhaps logical, but definitely not easy to grasp. To simplify it, you could use the label clause. First, indicate the column you want to rename, referring to it as you did in the select clause. Then, in single quotes, state the name you want to use. For example, price per product, and hit enter. That's much better now. You can also use the format clause to adapt numbers or dates to the desired format. For example, I can change the format of dates to, let's say, the one commonly used in the United States if it's something I'm more accustomed to. To do that, let's type format. The column with dates in the original dataset was F. Then type the desired format. First months, then days, and finally years. That's it. Now you know how to use the query function in Google Sheets, and even how to write advanced queries in Google Sheets. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them down in the comment section below. And if you like this video, then please give it a like, share the video with others, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a thing. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.